In a totally different scenario, let's talk about a story that's created big crashing waves of hype around the world over the last few weeks. It's been featured in Rolling Stone magazine, on BBC TV, and you may have even heard us talk about it here on 5 Live as well. And if you missed it, well, a guitar used by John Lennon went under the hammer today. What the guitar sounds like. It's a Gretsch 6120 model. It was played by Lennon when the band recorded Paperback Writer at London's famous Abbey Road Studios in 1966. It was then gifted to his cousin David Birch, who put the instrument up for sale. The auctioneers gave it a guide price of between £400,000 and £600,000, but experts had suggested that it would sell for much more. But the guitar failed to reach its reserve price. So why didn't this slice of music history find a new home tonight? Gabe Hernandez runs Blues Vintage Guitars in Nashville and has sold some famous guitars himself in his time. Gabe, great to have you with us. Tell me, first of all, how special and unique is this guitar?
Well, first of all, Dotun, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. Well, I mean, I would tell you that any guitar that was owned and played by John Lennon on any recording, especially anything done, with the Beatles, would be a very iconic piece and something that would have some pretty incredible value. It's something that any history would tell you that guitars played by iconics like Lennon, Eric Clapton, Jimi Hendrix, Jimmy Page, any of those people would have considerable value, and so it is a little bit of a surprise that the guitar did not sell today. Yes, it is.
Is the added value of a guitar famous by association, is it because simply the guitar has touched the hem of greatness, or is there something special about the guitars? Because each guitar is very different, isn't it? And I would have thought that John Lennon and great musicians would go into a guitar shop and try out 100 guitars before they chose the one that had exactly the feel that they wanted.
Well, that's actually very true. But people like John Lennon or any great guitar player that does play, I mean, as soon as they pick up a guitar and play it, you know it within just a few minutes if it's one for you or not. I mean, I've played guitar for a very long time, and I can tell you that I can, I'm not a famous player or anything like that, but I can tell you just from picking up a guitar if it's a good one or not. And so everybody's tastes and preferences would be different, but certainly somebody like John Lennon with he had that guitar because when he picked it up and it spoke to him, and just like Clapton's guitars, his Blackie and his Gibson ES335, when he picked those up, they were guitars that he decided to keep because they were his voice, and that's why they kept them.
But John Lennon wasn't a Gretsch player normally. This was an unusual.
No, he was not, and I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons why the guitar did not sell today.
Really?
Well, yeah, because John Lennon is known for his Rickenbackers. I mean, throughout the majority of his career with the Beatles, primarily, he's known for playing a Rickenbacker 325.
But you'd have thought that was what made this guitar so unique and priceless, in that it was, an oddity, as it were. That it's a one-off in terms of John Lennon guitars. So I would have thought that would have increased its value, not decreased it.
Yes and no. I mean, is it an oddity because it was a guitar that was owned and played by John Lennon? Absolutely. But is it one that would command the price that they were asking for it? Or they expected to get for it? I would tend to believe no.
But Gabe, how do you put a price on something like this? Surely, it's priceless, isn't it?
Oh, it's worth, and this is what I tell many people, especially customers that come to me with their instruments for sale, is that a guitar is worth whatever anybody is willing to pay for it.
Of course it is.
I mean, there are let's take some guitars that have sold that have been as an example, guitars like Bob Dylan's Fender Stratocaster that recently sold, the one that he used when he went electric back in the mid-'60s.
Mm-hmm.
That guitar came to market, I believe, at some point last year, and it sold for nearly $1 million US. Back in 2004, almost 10 years ago, Fender Eric Clapton's Blackie still holds the record at just under $1 million.
And I'm surprised that private collectors can afford these kind of prices, because usually the guitars go to institutions, don't they? Not least one well-known hard rock cafe has got quite a few of these guitars around.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
But on you're right when you say guitar's worth as much as anybody's prepared to pay for it, but it's how much anybody's prepared to pay for it on the given day of the auction. Now that it's had all this publicity, even the publicity saying that it didn't sell for 400 and 600,000, what's the betting on that when it goes back to auction, which it no doubt will, it will fetch that price and maybe even more?
Well, I'm going to tell you this. It probably there's a couple of other factors too that I think contributed possibly to the fact that it did not sell today, and that is, and taking nothing away from Trax auctions, but the exposure that a guitar of this caliber would have received from, say, going through an auction house like Sotheby's or Christie's, would exceed the exposure that the guitar received going through Trax. And then again, I don't want to take anything away from Trax,
sure.
But
I suppose it's like putting it on eBay.
And I wouldn't even consider it as like that. But selling a piece like this deserves the attention and the marketing push behind it.
The star treatment, and it deserves the star treatment, doesn't it?
Exactly, exactly. And Sotheby's and Christie's would have done that. Not that Trax did not do that or try to achieve that, but it would have been achieved. I think it a bit better had it been sold through Sotheby's or Christie's or even Julian's out in Beverly Hills, California.
Gabe, you and I could talk guitars all night long. You and I could, but my boss is saying to me, get off that tip right now, you air guitar smoothie. Is there a point when we can invite you back on and let's spend a night talking guitars for those of us who are
anytime. I love talking guitars, and I can talk guitars forever. So
but you'd have to bring some of your guitars with you. What's the best guitar ever made, do you think? Objectively, not particularly for you, objectively, is it the Stratocaster, the Telecaster, the Gibson? What would you go for?
Well, personally, I've always been a Gibson Les Paul guy, and I think the '59 Gibson Les Paul, or the early Strats, those are the early Tellies. Those are the guitars that made the music, of our lives, the soundtrack of our lives, and those are the guitars that that are sitting at the pinnacle of people's collections, and so those you can't say enough about those.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Ozzy Osbourne would say, rock and roll. Thanks very much, mate. Gabe, it's been good speaking to you. Thanks very much.
Thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Gabe Hernandez there, runs the Blues Vintage Guitars in Nashville. Forgive me for losing the plot on that one. When we come back.